Before Hank Williams was the most famous man in country music, he was a kid with a bad spine selling peanuts on the streets of Montgomery, Alabama. His teacher was a black street performer who played for coins outside the shoeshine stands. His stage was a sidewalk. 20 years later, 20,000 people would file past his coffin. This is the whole story from the sidewalk to the Cadillac. Hiram Williams was born on September 17, 1923, in Mount Olive, Alabama, a place so small it barely made the maps. His father, Lon, a railroad engineer and World War I veteran, collapsed with a brain aneurysm when Hank was 6 and spent most of the next decade in veterans' hospitals. The boy grew up fatherless in all but name, raised by his mother Lily, a boarding house keeper with a will of iron. He was also born with spina bifida occulta, a defect of the spine that would shape his entire life. It gave him the back pain that never stopped. The pain led to the drinking led to everything else. In Georgiana, the family took in a boarder's advice. The kid should learn from Rufus Payne, a street musician everyone called T-Tot. Payne played blues on the sidewalks for nickels and dimes. He taught Hank chords, rhythm, and how to work a crowd. Hank paid him in meals or 15 cents a lesson when he had it. Years later, Hank said it plainly, all the music training he ever had came from T-Tot. Rufus Payne died in 1939 in a charity hospital in Montgomery. He was buried in an unmarked grave. The music he passed to that skinny white kid would eventually be worth billions, and he never saw a dollar of it. At 13, Hank won a talent show at the Empire Theater in Montgomery, singing an original song about the WPA. At 14, he had his own 15-minute show on WSFA radio, twice a week, as the singing kid. He formed a band, the Drifting Cowboys, and started playing the honky-tonks of South Alabama. Rough rooms, chicken wire in front of the stage in some of them so the bottles would not reach the band. School ended for good in 1939. The road had already started. In 1943, at a medicine show in Banks, Alabama, he met Audrey Shepard, a farm girl in the middle of leaving her first husband. They married in December 1944 at a gas station in Andalusia by a justice of the peace. Audrey became his manager, his ambition, and his sparring partner. She pushed him toward Nashville. She also sang, though nobody but Audrey thought she should. The marriage was a war with intermissions, but it produced two things that mattered: the drive that got Hank to Nashville and a son, Randall Hank Williams, born May 1949. The world would know him as Hank Jr. In September 1946, Audrey walked Hank into the office of Fred Rose, the songwriter who ran Acuff Rose Publishing with Roy Acuff. Legend says Rose asked him to write a song on the spot to prove the ones he brought were his. Whatever happened in that room, Rose signed him, polished him, and became the closest thing to a protector Hank ever had. First came singles on the small Sterling label. Then in 1947, a contract with the brand new MGM Records and a single called Move It On Over that sold like a hit because it was one. Fred Rose did not want him to record Lovesick Blues. It was an old Tin Pan Alley show tune from 1922, and Rose thought it was wrong for him. Hank cut it anyway in the last minutes of a session. It went to #1 and stayed there for 16 weeks. On June 11, 1949, the Grand Ole Opry finally let him on its stage. The crowd at the Ryman called him back for 6 encores. Nobody had ever done that. At 25, the Peanut Kid from Montgomery was the biggest star in country music and one of the biggest in America. What followed was one of the great runs in American songwriting. Cold, Cold Heart. Hey, good looking, I'm so lonesome I could cry. Why Don't You Love Me? Long Gone Lonesome Blues. 30-some hits in 4 years, most of them written in minutes on car hoods and hotel beds in a language so plain it could not miss. Tony Bennett took Cold Heart to the pop charts. The Hillbilly Shakespeare, they called him, and for once the nickname undersold the man. He was also by then an alcoholic with a failing back, working 300 nights a year. Both clocks were running. In the autumn of 1951, on a hunting trip in Tennessee, Hank fell and reawakened every problem his spine had ever given him. That December, surgeons at Vanderbilt performed a spinal fusion. It did not fix the pain, it gave it a new edge. Now, the missed shows began to pile up. Promoters learned to keep him locked in hotel rooms before concerts, sometimes with a guard, so he would arrive sober. It did not always work. The crowd started coming to see which Hank would show up, and some nights no Hank showed up at all. 1952 took everything on schedule. In May, Audrey divorced him. In August, the Grand Ole Opry fired him for missing shows with a promise he could return when he sobered up. He went back to the Louisiana hayride in Shreveport, the minor leagues he had graduated from 3 years earlier. That autumn, he met Billie Jean Jones, 19 years old, and married her in October, twice on the same day in front of paying audiences at the New Orleans Municipal Auditorium. 14,000 people bought tickets to a wedding. Meanwhile, another woman, Bobby Jett, was pregnant with his daughter, a child he signed papers to support but would never meet. And then there was the Dr. Horace Raffle Marshall, who called himself Toby, a paroled forger who had bought his medical credentials from a diploma mill for $35. He supplied Hank with chloral hydrate, a sedative, on top of the morphine shots other doctors gave for the back, on top of the alcohol. Hank was 29 and his heart was already damaged. The people around him saw a man shrinking inside his suits. The songs kept coming anyway. His last single of 1952 was a novelty number with the title "Nobody Would Ever Be Able to Say Out Loud Again, I'll Never Get Out of This World Alive." He was booked to play Charleston, West Virginia on New Year's Eve and Canton, Ohio on New Year's Day. An ice storm grounded the plane, so a teenage college freshman named Charles Carr was hired to drive him north in the baby blue Cadillac. In Knoxville, a doctor injected him with morphine and vitamin B12 to ease the pain for the ride. Porters carried him to the car. Somewhere in the West Virginia night, between a gas stop and a hamburger stand, Hank Williams died in the back seat. Carr found him cold at a filling station in Oak Hill around dawn, January 1st, 1953. The official cause was heart failure. He had beer cans and unwritten song lyrics on the seat beside him. In Canton that night, the promoter announced the death to a laughing audience that thought it was a joke. Then the band played "I Saw the Light," and the laughter turned into something else. The funeral in Montgomery on January 4th was the largest gathering the city had seen since Jefferson Davis was inaugurated there in 1861. Estimates ran past 20,000 people. His mother chose the casket. Audrey and Billie Jean, the two widows, began a feud over his name that would last in courtrooms for decades. 5 days after the funeral, Bobby Jett gave birth to his daughter, Jett, who would spend 30 years proving in court who her father was. She won. The hits did not stop for the death. Your Cheatin' Heart, recorded in his last session, went to number 1 in 1953 and became the most covered song he ever wrote. So did Take These Chains From My Heart. So did Cowliga. Nashville had its first posthumous superstar, and it noticed how well that worked. Toby Marshall's fake credentials came out at a hearing that same year. He went back to prison. Nobody else around the machine that ran Hank Williams into the ground answered for any of it. 29 years, 5 months, and 2 weeks. That is the whole life. In that time, he wrote the catalog that country music still stands on and set the template for how the industry treats the people who build it, work them while they burn, and sell the ashes. His son became a superstar. His grandson followed. The unmarked grave of Rufus Payne got a memorial marker in Montgomery, paid for decades too late, and the baby blue Cadillac sits in a museum in Montgomery, polished behind ropes, the most famous back seat in American music. Hank Williams was the first name in this story, but he was never the last. The full stories of Patsy Cline, Jim Reeves, Keith Whitley, and the others are on this channel, each built on documented sources. Subscribe if you think they deserve to be remembered properly.